Hey, welcome everybody to our very first interview. So very excited about this. I'd like to introduce, we've got Michael Tapping who's going to be on tonight. He actually joined our group back in January, I believe. So he's been in the group for 4 months. Hey, Michael, how you going tonight?
Yeah, I'm good, Trev. Very good. Thanks, mate. How are you?
Excellent, mate. Excellent. So you've been in the group for 4 months. What's it been like? What have you seen some of the biggest growths in the group so far?
It's been very interesting for me. As you know, I'm slightly different to most of the people there. I was a child of a Vietnam veteran, but I lived in Saigon from 69 to 71. Our whole family did, because my dad served with the Australian Embassy over there at that time. So I found it very, very interesting, people's opinions, especially, say, the Americans' viewpoint on things compared to some of the Australian viewpoints. But hey, everybody's entitled to see it as they are, and it's very, very worthwhile for everybody that is a child of a Vietnam veteran, because it gives you an opportunity to express your thoughts, your feelings, all the problems in a closed environment, which is fantastic, and makes you feel a little bit safe in that respect.
Yeah, look, that's one of the key things that I wanted out of this group is to give a platform for other COVVs to come on board and to be able to share their opinions of, well, basically their life, of how it was like growing up with a father or a mother who served in the Vietnam War and what effects it has had on them. And look, there are always going to be some controversial topics that might come up and what people might say, different opinions. But one thing that it's been fantastic that all the members in the group so far have been very accommodating to other people's opinions. So you just said, like, you grew up in Saigon. So what was it like being a civilian and also like a child around that time when the war was still going on?
Um, at the time, I didn't really think much of it. As you well know yourself, when you're a child of a serviceman, you moved around very regularly. So it was just another posting somewhere else. But I do remember when we first got there, we stayed at the Caravel Hotel. The Australian Embassy was on the 7th floor. My dad was working at the embassy. I think we were on the 5th floor. So we had a lovely long journey to work of 2 floors. I remember going out of the front door to Caravel one morning with my mother heading down towards the markets. What is Bentan Market now? Everybody knows a very famous market down in Saigon. And my mum held her hands, my brother, my sister, myself, and she looked across the road and went, "Oh my God, how do we get across the road?" And then a couple of older Vietnamese people just walked across the road in front of a traffic, and she's, "Okay, we'll just follow them," And we just went across the road. That was the first experience of it all, and my eyes were just always open from then on. But Saigon itself back then, for civilians, life just went on, Trev. Life was very, very normal. Even though there was explosions, I do remember being up on the rooftop bar at the Caravel. My dad took us up there one evening, and you look out, when you walk in through the doors, and it's still the same today, although there are buildings in the way, you look down towards where the Mekong Delta is. And towards that way, where there's a lot of little estuaries and rivers that run around that way, you could see strafing through the sky. It was like fireworks. As a kid, I was thinking, wow, this is beautiful. Look at this, there's things flying around everywhere. So you could see explosions, you could see smoke pillows up in the distance, you could hear things. But itself, around the middle of Saigon where we lived, just life was normal. You go to the shops, go to the cinema and watch a movie. You walk around, you get in a taxi and a tuk-tuk and go to the town, whatever you want to do. We went to school there. We went to 2 French schools, Saint-Exupéry, which is quite a famous school in Saigon for the French people back through the 50s and 60s. In what was I suppose, a class for foreign students, but they all taught French. I couldn't speak a word of French. Lasted a little while.
Can you speak French now, or you still
No,
got no?
no. I wanted to try and learn in high school, but I just, as a teenager, I couldn't be bothered studying it.
Yeah, right.
But then we moved. St. Exupery was quite close to where we first lived. We moved houses, and then we changed schools. We actually went to a school further away again, with La Collette, but it literally was 2 blocks from St. Exupery, and 2 blocks up and about 2 blocks sort of down as well. And I remember La Collette College distinctly, again, French-speaking school, and I couldn't speak French. And one of the biggest problems I had there was I wanted to go to the toilet one morning. So I'm sitting in the classroom. I didn't know how to ask to go to the toilet. So I just wet my pants on the floor.
Oh, you did go I need to go to the wee-wee?
Yeah. But I also...
that must have been embarrassing for you.
Well, other kids laughed and stuff like that. It was something that I now talk about very freely, as you can tell. It doesn't bother me so much now. Yeah, it would have been for me then, and I was quite ashamed of myself, I think. But those French teachers, those old ladies there, Trev, back in those days, were very stern, very strict. Yeah. Everything was very, very strict. It was very tough. You didn't interrupt them. That was as simple as that, and you had to be polite about it. And I didn't know how to be polite in French, so I just kept my mouth shut. So yeah, that was always an interesting experience. But yeah, life in Saigon was like a bubble, I suppose.
There was what age were you when you lived over there in Saigon?
We flew out of here for Darwin on my 6th birthday in June 1969. So I arrived there, I was 6 years old. My brother turned 8 the first year we were there, and my sister turned 10 the first year we were there. So yeah, it was very interesting. But there was a couple of times there that things got a little bit close to us. Again, at school one day, Mum had to come with our driver to get us out. Someone let tear gas off in the area. And my mum, she laughs about it now, but she said, oh, I just blindly just ran into the school thinking I'd be able to get you out of there, no problems. And because you can't see tear gas, she's all of a sudden grabbing her eyes and, oh my God, what's going on? But got us out of there. And there's another time where our second house is up a laneway, and it's still there today. And maybe I'll show you one time, mate, when we get over there, maybe.
Yeah, mate.
And across the road from it, probably about 250 metres away, was a truck depot. So an army truck depot. And someone tried to blow it up one night. So about 2 o'clock in the morning, woken up with this massive boom. What the hell's that? And my dad came running out with gun in hand and looked around and made a quick phone call and said, no, it's okay. We're okay. There's no, he thought they were under attack. So, but no, there was no attack at all. And then the next morning we walked out that way down towards where the British Embassy pool was to go for a swim. And there's this big hole in the ground. It's just like, you're looking and going, wow, that's amazing, things like that just happened, and there's police, or not so much police, but soldiers on every street corner, armed soldiers, a lot of razor wire and barbed wire around buildings. And so you knew that you were in an active area for a war, but it never really got there while we were there, if you know what I mean.
So, like, Michael, I mean, like all those things that you're explaining, with the armed soldiers around there and explosions and flares going up and on, I mean, that became part of your normal way of life. But at any point in time, were you, like, scared for your life? I mean, you're 6 years of age and you're in a country where they're at war. I mean, was there any point where you're actually scared for your life?
There's a couple of times. When that explosion went off, that was one of those times. But my brother actually scared the crap out of me one night. As he woke up to go to the toilet, we had a separate room up on the 2-story house, up the back of a 2-story house with a bathroom in there. And he got up, and I knew he was up, and he turned the light on, woke me up, and he comes back and he goes, oh, Michael, look, looks like a Viet Cong on the roof over there. And he was like pointing and looking at that, and I jumped out of bed and I was shitting myself. I was like, my God. But he was mucking around, just being the older brother.
That's what brothers do, yeah.
Yeah, that's what brothers do, as you know. Yeah, so that scared me a little bit. There was one time at local college there where the local children just did not like us foreigners being there. And it's a very, very bad memory. I was really terrified this day as well. And what happened was that one of the recesses, we were just in the playground, and there's a brick wall up against one side. So the college, you come in the main entrance, it's like a rectangle shape, sort of rooms around all the way up, a little sort of quadrangle sort of area in there, a couple of big trees and some seats along there. So we were standing over near these trees and these seats, and these dozen or so Vietnamese kids come up with us, had sticks and rocks and stuff like that, and threatened us and wanted us to go home, just to get out of their country. And my brother said to me, let's just back up against the wall, at least we know where they're coming from. Then the smartest piece of advice I've ever got in my life, I suppose. I was 7 years old at that stage. And these kids were coming at us and ready to beat the crap out of us when the teachers came down and pulled them apart. So I was terrified that day as well. It was just something that I suppose that opened my eyes later in life, not at the time, but as I grew up, and you understand, and people have been persecuted against, I know what it feels like. You know, the hatred of someone that just wanted you, and literally they were saying, get out of our country, get out of our country, go home. We don't want you here. And that was frightening.
Yeah,
that was very, very frightening.
So,
yeah.
How long after that did you actually stay there? And like, when did you come home to Australia?
April 71. So about 22 months later. So this we were probably there for another 12 or so months after that incident. But always felt safe at home. Because of my dad's intelligence work that he did, the house was deemed as a safe house for officers coming back from the jungle, basically. So people would show up at night, any time of night, just wander in and sit down and have a drink with my dad and have a talk and stuff like that. So there was, I suppose, most times there was armed soldiers around us. So I felt quite safe at home. One of my dad's good friends over there was a guy called Rang Hall who worked for the CIA. He used to come. He got a few photos of us with him. He'd bring me and my brother Christmas presents and stuff like that, and sit down and play trains and things worse, and drove around
with a CIA agent.
Yeah, he's just a normal guy, a really nice guy. Yeah, but his job was similar to what my dad was doing, intelligence work over there. So he was great. Unfortunately, the bloke died about 15 years ago. So I remember talking to my mother. We were trying to get in contact with him again after my dad took his life 20 odd years ago. Mum wanted to try and get in contact with Rang Hall just to find out, because Dad never told us what he actually did. So Mum was, at my beckoning, was trying to find out more about what he did. So look, but as I said, a couple of times I was really, really scared. We got caught at Vung Tau one weekend. We used to go to Vung Tau for like a swim at the beach and a barbecue, a picnic, and all that stuff for all the Aussie guys that were stationed down there. And opposite the Grand Hotel at Vung Tau is this front beach where you'd always go swimming down there. And the Navy divers were based there as well. And one time Vung Tau went on red alert for VC in the area. So we had to bunker down with the divers overnight and come back to Saigon the next day.
Really?
That was a little bit scary, but because there's no fire or no shots were fired or no mortars blown up, I felt quite safe in that environment. And I literally found out a few years ago when I was over back in Vietnam with my friend over there. He took me up to where the VC used to actually live, in the hills just above Vung Tau. I said, wow, I did not know that. And he said, no, many people didn't. Wow. There's a little base up there. Very, very close. Yeah, they used to just watch the Australians, and when they were in Vung Tau, they never thought of them as a threat to anything there. They apparently, I don't know the story, but from what Thomas said to me, he said something like, they used to think the Australians were lazy and just want to have a party.
Oh, we're just laid back, mate. We just want to have a frothy.
That's right, exactly. So
Have a cold beer.
yeah, and that's why they never sort of attacked them at all when they were Vung Tau, because they saw them as no threat,
Wow.
to anybody. So yeah, it's very interesting.
So that's a really interesting life that, like, you're living over there in Saigon. But what was it like when you came back to Australia? I mean, it's totally be like yin and yang type thing, black and white.
Yeah, look, it was. You got to remember that time, 69 to 71. That's when a lot of the protests about the soldiers and conscription and that, and bring the soldiers home, was happening back in Australia, which we knew nothing about. But we got back, and because you're mostly dealing with Americans over there, and you'd have a army-style crew cut, you're watching American TV, we had sort of like American accents. So my dad got, after a bit of a holiday, got based in the RAF base in Sale, East Sale. So lived down there and went to a school down there called Araluen Primary School. And my brother and I got ostracised for probably, I don't know, whether it was 1, 2, 3 months or whatever, because we had these American accents. They didn't believe we were Australian.
Right.
And then they didn't believe that we were in Vietnam either. And Sale was an interesting town back then, because half the population worked on the oil rigs out in Bass Strait, and the other half basically were at the Air Force Base. So it was a very mixed lot there. So we had a bit of trouble assimilating, I suppose, back in the Australian school system as well. Like I ended up doing correspondence in Vietnam because I just couldn't do the French. So I really hadn't been to school for the first 3 years. I missed sort of, grade 1, 2, 3 sort of thing. And I was lucky, very, very lucky that the school down there, as a new school, they ran composite classes. So you had years 4, 5, 6 and stuff like that. So I got chucked in year 4 with 5 and 6 composite class. And one of the beauties, I suppose, of being in Saigon in the war zone as a child, it makes you grow up rather quickly.
Yeah,
and become more mature and understand things, and you listen and learn much quicker. So I had no trouble picking up, the year 4, 5 and 6 stuff, which helped my education kickstart basically, because that's where I started from. But yeah, it was very, very tough those first few months back in Australia, and plus bloody cold down in the Victoria.
It is cold in Sale. It's
Yeah,
very cold down there on the shoreline.
Yeah,
very cold
when
place.
you coming from 34 degrees down to like 7 or 8 degrees, that's a bit of a eye opener as well. But then, as we moved through, went back up to Nowra and then eventually up into Sydney. Was at high school there. There was a few people didn't believe too much about what I had to say, and I stuck that all through my childhood and into my 20s, into my adulthood actually. People not believing where I'd been and for how long I'd been there. And
what type of effect did that have on you, Michael? Like people not believing that you're over actually in the war zone. Well, not actually right in the war zone, but over in the country where it was happening, in Saigon. And
yeah, it made me angry at times, but a lot of the times I just shut it out, which is probably a mistake, but I shut things out because what I discovered after I came back, I had no emotion for probably 20 odd years. I didn't cry, nothing bothered me. I remember in high school watching a guy doing high jump at a athletics carnival, going, this kid's from our school, and he jumped over at a high jump, missed the mat, and broke his ankle really badly. It was just flopping around on the end of his leg, and there were people throwing up everywhere. And I just stood there and went, yeah, what's the problem? And I couldn't look at that now. So when people sort of questioned what I said, I think I just shut it out completely and just ignored them and just moved on. Didn't get into a conflict, didn't get into an argument or anything like that with it. Just, it wasn't worth doing. It's hard to describe. I suppose you may have been there yourself with some of the issues. You might have had other people in the group may have been in that situation too, where they find it best just to shut down and just walk away from it. It's too hard to explain when you don't know yourself sometimes.
100%. Look, I'm sure there's plenty of people in the group that will be able to read the comments later on after this video goes up. But with myself too, there's been times where just emotionally detached from some of the situations, and you just bury those emotions because that was your coping mechanism, to deal with whatever effects there was from your father serving and same with you. But what's very surprising, like with everything that you went through as a child, and and some of that trauma and being like seeing things getting exploded and all that around you. You mentioned before that you've been back to Vietnam. How many times have you gone back to Vietnam now?
Oh, 6 or 7, I can't remember. Okay. 20 odd years ago, my dad took his life about 24 years ago. After that, I've got to tell the whole story because it leads to me actually getting there eventually. I went to the Vietnam Veterans Association in Parramatta here in Sydney, just looking for some sort of support mechanism. As you well know, it wasn't there back in the 90s. Walked in there and told them my story, and they went away and came back to me and said, sorry, we have no record of civilians being in Vietnam. Basically, don't believe a word you're saying. So I said, you are effing kidding me. I said, all right, I'll be back in 2 days' time with everything I've got. So I came home, picked up maps, school reports, the school photograph, our passport, copies of our passports, our inoculations, whole lot. Took it in, gave it to this bloke, and he said, do you mind if I take this away and show my boss? Let's go for it. Come back, and then they said, look, we're really, really sorry. We had no idea. And then they turned around and said, but there's nothing we can do for you. All right, so I went, okay. So I went out sourcing, and there was a group of children of Vietnam veterans close by. The lady, I've seen her name in the group now, Liang Galliani. I was coaching AFL at one of the local clubs down here, and her husband's, I think his cousin was playing there. So I said, and I said, Charlie and Daniel. Oh, yeah, that's my husband's cousins, whatever. Okay, yeah, chat. And she said, look, would you like to come and do a talk in front of some children, Vietnam veterans at St. Mary's, next to St. Mary's RSL Club? I said, yeah, I'd love to. So I got there that day, and I think there's about 20 odd people, all wives and mothers. I'd like to say they were daughters of children because it was a working day. Really had no idea. I didn't have anything written down. I was just going to talk from the heart like I am right now. And I got up there and I thought to myself, before I opened my mouth, I thought, they're not going to believe a word. It's going to be a waste of time. So I told them about my life and all that there, and going to school there and everything and all that. And then I just sort of went, okay, stopped and said, all right, anybody got any questions? I'll hang around. And every one of them, everyone came up and asked me something.
That's so good, bro.
Yeah, I had no idea at that stage that there was other people in that situation, I suppose. So this sort of went on, and then somebody contacted me. Similarly, they wanted to make a documentary, and they said, "Look, mate, I want to take you back there and go through it all." And I hesitated. I didn't want to go. I was scared. I was scared that I'm not sure whether it was that the place was going to be different to what I'd experienced, or it was going to be the same. I really have no idea what I was scared of at that time. So the years went by, and a mate of mine said to me, you got to go back. And he said to me, he'd come with me. And I said, yeah, I don't really want to. I was still scared back in the early 2000s and stuff like that. And then I think it's about 6 or so years ago, I can't remember, my wife's boss was chucking a 60th birthday party for his wife in Koh Samui in Thailand, and they invited us along. I said to my wife, I said, all right, let's go a week early. Let's go to Vietnam. It's close enough to do it. So we did it. And it was amazing. I remember coming out of the airport, Cincinnati Airport there, and they got guys in soldier sort of uniform, the green uniforms at immigration and customs, and I was a little bit terrified at first to go through there, and got through and went, wow, okay, that was really good, no problems. They were just so laid back, no dramas. We'd booked in at the COVV Hotel, which is now a very, very exquisite 5-star international hotel. They built a new one next to the old one. Got the car down there, and as we drove down what is now Don Coy Street, which is old Trudeau Street, or the Rue Catanat from the cathedral, Notre Dame Cathedral, you head down towards the river. You come down there, you can see the Caravel in the corner, you got the Opera House, Continental Hotel. As soon as I saw it, it's just like, wow. I just felt happy.
Yeah.
There was no worries at all. So my wife and I, we had a map, and we pulled it out, and we went walking. We went walking day in, day out. Went up to find old schools and old houses, and had a great time wandering around there. I remember when we were looking for an old house, the second house we lived in there. Couldn't find the first one. We still can't. We think it's behind something, I'm not sure. Walked up the street, and I went, wow, it's so much busier around here now. And the old paddock that was across the road, it's got all buildings and houses on it. And we're standing across the road, and there, out the front of a laneway, there's this one of the little shops there. I said to my wife, I said, that's it. And I took off across the road. She said, wait. So coming across the road. We passed the shop, and I went down this alleyway. She goes, where are you going? I said, it's down here. And there's a very narrow alleyway. I walked around the corner and down, and I stopped at this first house. And no, kept going down further, and I stopped and went, that's it. That's the house. And she caught up with me, looked at her and went, wow, it is too, because there's a veranda at the front, and there's a photo of my mother and my sister on that veranda. And she said, yeah, that's definitely the veranda. I mean, trees have grown bigger and stuff like that. So yeah, that was definitely the house. Took a photo, the address, and yeah, I've since verified that is the actual house.
What an amazing experience to share with your wife also.
Yeah. So yeah, we had a really good time there, and yeah, I've been back a few times since then. My mate eventually got there with me a few years ago. We did a couple of weeks through Tet over there, which is a new year. Went to Cambodia, then we went around Saigon. Oh, I should say that first visit is when I met my friend Thomas as well. He's the tour operator. He took us up to Coochie tunnels, and that was a funny experience. We got picked up at a hotel. We picked us up at a hotel, and we had two Americans with us, sort of older Americans who've been going around the world. Really nice people, but just very ignorant of a lot of things. No disrespect to the Americans that might be looking at this later. They were living in Florida, on the Gulf of Mexico side of Florida, not the Atlantic side. And we were walking around Coochie tunnels, and I was talking to Thomas. I was telling him about my stories, and he was fascinated by what I had to say. And it was just like the lady just didn't understand everything, talking about the bomb sites. So there's Coochie tunnels, there's a bomb blast there, and Thomas was explaining it all in kilograms. He goes, how big is that? And her husband turned and said, 500 pound, Don, 500 pound. Like this beautiful American accent. And she turned to me at one stage and she said to me, were you Australians here in the war? And I said, yeah, but we were the smart ones. We weren't as silly as you bloody Americans were.
I think that's going to get a few comments there, mate.
Yeah, it is. But I explained what I was talking about. The Americans would send a point out 50 metres in front of the main patrol party in the jungle, and he'd get taken out. the Australians would sort of keep it close side by side a lot more going through the jungle. And I explained that to her, and she goes, "Oh, really? Is that what happened?" I said, "Yeah, like we had a bit of a laugh and a joke about it all." So, but eventually I got my big mate to come back, and we had a great time. We had Saigon, then Mekong, Kuchi, up to Da Nang, Hoi An, and Hue. Hue is where the Tet Offensive, the major Tet Offensive was in '68, and it's an incredible place. It is an incredible place. What they've done with the Citadel and rebuilt things. My father had some photos. The reason I wanted to get away, my father had been there in '69, '70, and took photos. And I wanted, basically, a lot of these photos, I wanted to retrace his steps. I wanted to go where he'd been and take photos. We couldn't find some things, and it was a little bit frustrating. We thought they were all at the Citadel and another place just down from that as well. But we couldn't find what we're looking for, a couple of photos. And we went to dinner one night, the last night we were in Hue before we went to Hanoi. And sitting in a restaurant with my mate's partner, and she turns around and says, "Oh, hey, look at this. Here's a picture of the one we're looking for." I went, "Oh, God, where's that?" And it was 30 Ks out of town. We're never going to find it wandering around. But, when we got to Hanoi, mate, it was an amazing experience too. We were wandering around, heading over to Ho Chi Minh Coliseum and stuff like that, and walking past an army base, and there's a Vietnamese guard there with a Kalashnikov on there, and I'm like, wow. And we walk up, and he said, I just went, "Xin chào," and he goes, "Hello." He said hello back to us in English, and smiled and was happy to see us. And I just went, wow, this is just doing my head in, like,
it's a different scene altogether, isn't it?
Yeah, completely different. I remember a couple of old workmates. One of them was in Vietnam, another one was in the Australian Army as well. I remember messaging them both of them at the same time and telling them that. And they said, yeah, how time heals wounds and stuff like that. It's incredible. So, so I've been back a few times since then. Last June, on the 50th anniversary of my first going there, I took family there, got my son and my daughter. And my son wandered through Saigon with me and had a look at my old schools and the old house and stuff like that. He wanted to walk in my footsteps and his grandfather's footsteps. And we got back up to Hue, and on a tour around there, a guy took us. He was a local bloke, and I showed him some of the photos. He said, "I can take you to those places, ones I didn't get to before." And so the next day we organised with him, and he took me out to everywhere on these photos, and he put me in the same spot. He had the photo on his phone. He said to me, "Michael, no, it's here." He said, "Look, bang, bang, bang," lined it up, and literally, basically the same spot, and that just blew me away.
That's great. Well, look, as you know, I mean, my whole idea is we're going to interview people around Australia and New Zealand, over to America, and end up in Vietnam. I think I've just found my tour guide somehow.
Yeah, look, mate, it's I suggest to everybody to go there. I did after being there with my mate. We went back a few months later, him, myself, and my wife, and we went to Vung Tau, and we stayed there a few days. Just want to get out of Saigon and just go somewhere different. So we stayed in Vung Tau at a friend of mine's apartment. She rented it out, reasonable rate, $30 a night per person, nice spot. We went down the road it was Wednesday night, State of Origin night. So there's a couple of Australian pubs down there. So we went into one, didn't have it on. And this guy said, "Oh, damn." He said, "All right, I think there's one around the corner, a local expat living there." He said, "I got the bike, I'll go up and check and I'll come back and let you know." And I said, "Yeah, I know where the bar is." So we started walking there anyway, and he come back and saw us on the road and said, "Yep, it's on up here." So we went up there, sitting there watching the game. There's this old bloke there. And I just started talking to him. His name's Jimmy Cookshank. He's an expat. He's a veteran living in Vung Tau. And I was telling him, "Oh, mate, I lived over here as a child and everything like that." And he said, "Look," he said, "tomorrow, lunchtime, 12 o'clock at the old ferry terminal." I said, "Yeah, I know where it is." He said, "There's about 20 of us old vets who live here in Vung Tau." He said, "We get together, have lunch and a few beers and have a chat." He said, come along. He said, there's no women allowed. So I went down and I'd taken a bit of memorabilia with me on that trip, just in case, you know, like you meet some of these people. Unfortunately, I did. So I went there and I found these guys, and I was very, very nervous, to be honest. I really didn't know what to say, and I sat down next to a guy who was a tunnel rat, and and we spoke a little bit, and I said to him, I said, how are you feeling? How do you cope? He said, I don't have any problems, mate. I've never had a problem. And yet the guy on the other side of me hardly said boo all day. And the tunnel rat, it's very different, you know, for
very
people.
different how other people react. And it's the same with like children too, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, you can have two, you know, siblings in the same household, and one has no effect of their father serving, and the other one has a lot of effects. So, I mean, that's one of the big things that I'm pushing with this documentary is to go into research all these different effects and what it's all been. Hey, mate, I think we can keep chatting all night long somehow, but we better wrap it up here. And it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, Michael, and I'm sure that any comments from any of our members that will get there, that any questions they might have for you, that I'm sure you'll be very willing to answer. Of course, this is getting filmed, and then I'll be putting it up in the next couple of days up in our group. So thank you so much, Michael, for being our very first interviewee. And by the way, I like your threads that you've got on, mate. I just have to give a shout out there to very, very good manufacturer that you've got wearing at the moment.
No, they're perfect, mate. I'll tell you, these the V-neck rather than the round neck to wear in Vietnam when it's hot, mate, is perfect because you sweat so much through here, I'm telling you.
I'll keep that in mind. I'll make sure I pack it. Thank you once again, Michael. That's it for tonight, guys. If you want to be involved in one of these sessions with me, just make sure that you drop me an email with all your details, and we'll catch up. But until next time, you know, we've all got a story that needs to be told. We need to get out there and we need to tell them. See you later, guys. Bye.